Good morning. You're muted, sorry.
Told it to.
I have people muted when they come in because, like if Harriet's barking or rattling papers or
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
But
I thought I had already taken care of it. It's like so you had a good birthday, huh?
I had a great birthday. It was a beautiful, beautiful day.
Yeah.
Originally, we were going to go to the zoo, but once we got there, it was so jam-packed. It probably would have taken us a good hour to get into the parking lot.
Oh.
So we ended up going to Tower Grove Park, which worked well because, we had plenty of space. In addition to that, they had a playground for Marky, so she was entertained. It was really a nice day.
Good. Yeah. Tower Grove Park's really pretty.
It is, and they're doing a lot of work around there too. So,
are they?
Yeah. Morning, Lance.
Morning, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Dale, do you have slides this morning? Should I share?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm a low tech guy.
Sometimes those are the best.
Will it be pantomime or charades then?
No, I'm not that talented either.
Morning, Kathy.
Morning, Lisa.
How are you doing today?
Well, thanks. And you?
Good, thanks. Looks like we're going to have a beautiful week. I think there's a few showers this afternoon. How's your weather, Lance?
We're supposed to have 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, which is about 60 Fahrenheit today. And then it drops down to 0 tomorrow. So there's this something moving in for a minute and everyone's going to be outside today. And then tomorrow we'll be bundled up again.
Yeah. But is it going to last or is it just a one-day thing?
And it's just a one-day thing. I'm looking at the 14-day and it's slowly warming, but spring and fall here are schizophrenic. They don't know what to do with themselves day to day. So, everyone will be out in shorts today as if it's a California summer all of a sudden. And then tomorrow we'll be back in parkas. So it's fine.
Where are you located, Lance?
I'm up in Toronto in Canada.
Toronto.
So it's coming, spring's trying to start up. It's just having a misfire here and there, but we'll get there. It's just April starting, right? So
exactly.
We've had snow we've had snow in May, end of May sometimes. The last little bit of Mother Nature going, wait, I've got one more in my pocket. Here, try this.
Well, the nice thing about those late season fall snowfalls is that they don't hang around. You don't have to really do any shoveling. It goes away almost as quickly as it comes.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Dale, where are you located?
St. Louis.
Oh, you are? Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
But now, Dale, if you weren't before, now you're an international speaker.
Oh, really?
Well, Lance is here, right?
Oh, sure.
You've crossed the border.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can say well-renowned in several nations.
I'm going to close this door. I forgot. Sorry. I heard Harriet chewing on Cecil, and he wasn't happy about it.
Yeah, I closed both doors to my office too, because if I didn't, one of the labs would certainly come in some point.
Yeah. Join you. We had several more people registered, so I'm hoping that they just trickle in. So what are everyone's weeks looking like? Busy?
Mine not so much, Lisa. I'm looking for new clients, so it's all marketing this week, all new biz dev, and trying to get some. I've got a sales rep working for me, and then a few new email marketing campaigns starting. So that's kind of my week. It's all go find some new people.
Are you doing that on the phone?
Everything, email, phone, all the above. Any kind of point of contact. There's about 4 or 5 different digital campaigns I'm starting, so hopefully to get some interest, and then follow up on the phone if anyone puts their head up.
Yeah. Hey, Andy. Hi, Mary.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Yeah.
Lance, my week looks exactly the same as yours.
Ah, welcome to the Business Development Club.
Yes, sir.
That's an ongoing process, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Yeah, dialing for dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, too few business owners realize that that's their primary job, is generating business.
It's taken me about 40 some odd years to realize 80% needs to be there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, everyone's so adept at what they do that once you get to work, it's not often not that challenging. The challenge is getting it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just read and trying to implement The Greatest Referral of All Time. I'll let you know how it goes in a few months, but it's a good book.
Sounds exciting. That's a book you're reading?
Uh-huh. I'll tell you more about it when we get to it.
All right.
We're right at 7:30, Dale. Should we get started?
Whenever you're ready.
Oh, it looks like we're already recording. Julie is so efficient.
She is.
Yes. So, and I didn't pay any attention. Otherwise, I probably would have stopped it for a minute. But anyway, everybody will get to hear our conversation because as everyone knows, this is recorded and it'll be up on our YouTube channel. Though Julie will send an email and say, here's where you can find it, along with any other great information that you share with us, Dale. And I'm going to let you take it away. I think everybody knows that I am Lisa with Recruiting for Growth. So Dale, I'm going to just hand it over to you, though I do have some questions for you. Ready?
Okay. Yeah. I'll try to keep it brief. My name's Dale Furtwengler, and I'm a CPA by background. Spent 3 years with a national firm, 17 years in corporate and chief financial officer positions. Then lost a political battle at the last job I was at and started a business providing part-time CFO services. Did that for about 17 years and then had the good fortune to have a book on pricing published by AMACOM, a division of the American Management Association. And when I was speaking to promote the book, I got a lot of more interest in that than I did CFO services. So I rebranded my company to that and spent about 6 years doing that and still do the pricing work. Still occasionally actually do some CFO work, but my primary focus these days is on teaching confidence. I've written a trilogy of books on that and have developed programs, including a certification program that enables people to become instructors of confidence.
Impressive.
So hopefully I kept that short.
You did. And I think the way that you would prefer this is if somebody has a question, just kind of either pipe in or raise their hand, but I'll start us off and then everybody else can kind of jump in. Does that work for everyone?
Oh yeah, I really, to me, if I can answer people's questions, it makes the program a lot more valuable to them, a lot more relevant to them. So that's my preferred style, but I can talk, so I can go either way.
Well, here's my first question. You know, you hear about demographics all the time. Tell me how demographics and psychographic profiles differ.
Okay.
Or maybe we should back up and say, what is a psychographic profile?
Okay, well, to answer the last question first, psychographic profile is a profile that's based on values, behaviors, and characteristics, as opposed to demographics, which are based on some quantifiable measure. To give you an example that differentiates the two, assume for a moment that you own a Mercedes dealership and that you know that all of your customers have six-figure incomes and they live in certain zip codes. Those are the demographics and they're accurate. But what they don't explain is why there are people in those zip codes earning six-figure incomes who are buying Hummers, Lexus, BMWs, Audis, and the other vehicles, luxury vehicles. And so the real value of the psychographic profile is it gets you to the why people are buying what they're buying. The analogy I like to use is that demographics will get you to the stadium, psychographics get you to your seat. So the psychographics will help you identify who your ideal customer is.
And how do we do that? I mean,
Okay.
what steps do we need to take in order to do that? Or what questions do we need to ask?
Right. The process I use with my clients, and one you can do yourselves, although it's helpful to have somebody, a good friend who knows you well, knows your business fairly well, to be a sounding board in this process. But it's actually a 3-step process. And the first step is I ask business owners, why did you create the offerings that you have? What was it in particular that you saw was missing in the marketplace? You know, what gap are you filling with what you're offering? Because that really tells you what's important to you and what you value. Because the goal of psychographic profiling is to help you identify people who share your values and filter out those that don't. That way you spend a lot less time and energy and relieve yourself of a lot of the frustration of rejection that occurs in typical business marketing and sales. You also find that when you align yourself with somebody that has the same values you do, they're a lot more fun to work with, and price is irrelevant to them because they value the same thing that you do. So the first step is to understand why you created what you've created in the way of offerings and why you feel it's so important. The second step then is to look at your customer base and identify those customers that are the most fun to work with, the ones you really enjoy interacting with. And ask yourself, what is it that makes them so much fun to work with? Then the third step is to look at your customer base again, this time as to which are the most profitable customers you have. Keeping in mind that often the most profitable and the most enjoyable are the same people. But the question you want to ask in the third step is, what is it that these people value so highly that they're willing to pay whatever price I ask? The price really never becomes an issue. Because when you see what it is that they're seeing that they value, then it's easier to craft the language in your marketing materials and your sales scripts that speak to those very things. And when you do that effectively, what happens is that you attract people who share your values, and the ones who don't, their shadow doesn't darken your threshold. So you don't waste time and energy with those folks.
And is that a question you think that we should ask them, or how do we find that out?
Well, you can do some examination first to see where they focus their attention when they're, what caught their interest when you were telling them about it, what they enjoy, what they appreciate about what you do. Because if they really are appreciating what you do, they will typically tell you that. So paying attention to what they're telling you that they really enjoy about it. But I also ask, I mean, I've had clients, and of course, I've been selective about the time when I ask this question, but normally when they're really happy, I'll ask them, what is it you like about this service? Because that's what I'm looking for. I'm not setting myself up for some kind of failure there. But yeah, normally because you're aligned with people who share your values, when you ask these questions, you get very candid answers. And you can also ask, and I've done this as well, and said, what would you like this service to do for you that it's not currently doing?
That's an excellent question.
So one of the things over the years that I've railed about is the way sales forces are managed. And I don't care if you're a solo entrepreneur like I am, or whether you've got a full-blown sales force. The focus is always on generating new business. And that means new customers. I really believe that at least a third of a salesperson's time should be devoted to going back to existing customers and going to the plant floor or wherever you need to go to observe what they're doing with what you're providing. And that way you get to see what kind of workarounds they've put into place, because there's an element of your product or service that's not doing something they need done or want done. And when you observe that and know that, then you can position yourself. Your R&D costs go down dramatically because you know what your focus needs to be, and you know what solution you need to work toward. And that way, you know, you're constantly upgrading your offerings in a way that is valuable to your customers.
Can you give us any examples, like the products or services?
Oh,
You can use me as a guinea pig if you want.
and no, that's all right. Well, I'll tell you what, I just gave a company some feedback today. There's a company that has mutual funds that I go through with my investing. And one of the things that irritates me, this is a little thing, but it's a thing that irritates you. And, you know, the company doesn't know until you tell them, right? But whenever I go to log in to the site to check on the status of my investments, I'll start typing in my username and then look up at the screen and see there's nothing there in the username box. It's because they don't put the cursor there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's a little thing, but it's normally the little things that are the source of irritation. And they're also the things that, once they're resolved, really wow people. You know, if you know, responding to phone calls within a day. I'll give you one from my personal experience. When I was doing this, particularly when I was doing the CFO service work, whenever I would finish an appointment with a client and I was going to the next appointment, instead of picking up the cell phone and checking messages and that sort of thing, I would replay that conversation. And in doing so, once in a while, I would find that something was said that didn't register at the time, or there was a tonal inflection I hadn't picked up on in the original conversation. And I realized that what I had suggested wasn't going to be the right solution. And so when I would get to the next appointment, I would call my client and say, you know, I was thinking about what we just said. And the first words out of their mouth was, "You're still thinking about me?" You know, they were amazed that I was doing that. But it's just a way that I can improve the service that I'm providing to my customers by replaying conversations and making sure that I didn't miss anything in the original conversation. Something else that I found that worked very well for me in those CFO service days, as with all of you, I'm sure, you can see farther down the road than your customers can. You can see how they're evolving and what their needs are going to be in the future. And so I would tell a client, look, somewhere down the road, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, whatever, you're going to experience this. But I don't want you to worry about it, because we'll be able to take care of it when that time arrives. And what I found fascinating, that whatever time frame I said, they'd cut that in about half. It was almost like them saying, I wonder why I don't have this problem yet, and then working toward it. So, and because I had brought it up and predicted it, then I was naturally the one they called to help them with it. And so I could almost plan my work by the seeds that I planted that way.
Is that called forecasting?
Yeah, I'm sort of sure some people would call it manipulation, but if it's working to their best interest, then why not, right?
Right. Does anybody else have questions? I'm not trying to hog all of Dale's time. That pertains to your business in particular?
Dale, when you were just saying that you plant the seed, actually what you've done is to raise their awareness, to bring it to their attention sooner so that they start paying attention to it, as opposed to and it's really a great service because again it keeps them from having to experience pain to understand why they need it.
Yeah, good point, Andy. I had not looked at it that way, but yeah, it would save them that surprise element, yeah, the gasp that occurs when something unexpected happens. So I had not looked at it in that light previously. Thank you.
Andy also made reference to the website thing. When you're checking your lottery numbers, you have to, make certain the cursor's in the right place.
Okay.
That's funny. That's good.
But when you have the Mary, go.
Yeah, I would like for you to review your third step again. So, you're looking at the customer base and looking at who is most profitable after you go through and the ones that would be most fun to work with. And can you explain that a little bit more about looking at what makes them so profitable and the questions that you would ask?
Yeah. So, when you're asking yourself what makes them so profitable, you're wondering, you want to know why they're willing to pay the price. And they don't want to, they don't really quibble with you over the price. What is the value that they're seeing that allows that to occur? What kinds of things are they doing in their business that you find similar to the way you approach business? Because then you're seeing a mindset that's very similar to your own, a process similar to your own, and you can tap into that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andy.
Can you give an example, Dale?
Yeah, good question. It's when I looked at clients and I found that they were easy to deal with and they were very profitable, it was because we valued the same things. And so when you're looking at what you're providing from their eyes, then you're getting a sense for what they're seeing and what's important to them and what it is they value. And the key to getting that understanding is that you get a sense for why they're buying, and that way you can use that language to attract others. Now, one of the things I found with my clients in the CFO service realm was, number one, I was not a tax guy like Andy, but the little tax work that I did, I'm kind of a moderate. I don't mind pushing the envelope some, but I have to have some kind of reasonable basis, for the argument I'm making. And I know Andy's of that same mindset. But I've also known CPAs who they push the envelope so far, it's like, man, I'm not getting anywhere near that line. And what I found is that when I was talking to clients about tax issues, they had that same mindset. They'd start to, if they felt I was pushing too far, they would be questioning it because you could tell they were uncomfortable. Okay. Similarly, I was involved with quite a few negotiations over the years with clients. And not that I was necessarily sitting there at the table negotiating, but I was counseling them on how to approach the negotiation and what to look for, and what to be willing to accept from the other side. And whenever I would get a request to help with a negotiation, my first question to them was, are you looking for a fair deal or the best deal? And I found all my clients said a fair deal. And again, that's an alignment of values. I don't think that long-term relationships get built when somebody's getting the best deal. If they're getting a fair deal, everybody benefits, everybody walks away happy, and things, you have a long-term relationship that will benefit both parties. And my clients always said a fair deal. And at that point, I'd say, okay, fine, let's, I'll help you with that. If they had ever said, I'm looking for the best deal, that would have been the end of it. They'd had to find somebody else to do that. Does that help?
Dale, this is Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
One of the things that I find very useful about your model is it helps me as a business owner screen out customers that are not appropriate for me.
Right.
And so I remember years ago you saying that you didn't work with people who were looking for short-term fixes. You were looking for people who were going after long-term solutions. So if they wanted, just a Band-Aid, that wasn't a good customer for you. And you would graciously say, I'm not your guy. And I think what's really useful to this conversation today is the question, what makes these customers fun? Mm-hmm. And if you have someone who, wants to pay you hand over fist, but they're going to be a real energy drainer for you, it's not somebody you want to work with.
Absolutely. And you've got a fantastic memory, because as you were saying that, it's like, yeah, I think I remember saying that. But no, you're absolutely right. And that's the purpose of the psychographic profile. And, it has a number of benefits once you have that profile. And in a moment, I'll share some of my profiles with you so you get a better sense for what they look like. But the key is that when you have this profile, because what you want to do after you've got those three components is you want to triangulate them. Okay, you're going to look for the common elements to all three. What is it that you value, that your most enjoyable customers value, that your most profitable customers value? What are the common elements to all three of those analyses? Because that's going to help you develop your psychographic profile. And when you have a good psychographic profile, then what happens is you use that language in your marketing. And when people see themselves in that language, they're inclined to contact you. When they don't, then they won't. And once they do contact you, the ones that do, the sale's virtually made because they already see the alignment of. It was based on something I discovered when I was in corporate in CFO positions. It worked very well for me. It was a system that worked very well for me there. The most dramatic was when I was with a mortgage banking firm. I had a staff of 16, and my team and I cut 16,000 hours out of a 40,000 hour annual budget. Morale was higher than it had ever been, and we were constantly providing new information to senior management and better information. So we had a best of all worlds there. And after I got out of corporate, one of my earliest CFO clients, I coached on this system. And within a month, she cut her billing cycle from 3 weeks to 2 days. And she did it without any overtime, adding any staff, changing the computer system, anything, just by changing the focus and the approach. So I had some decent results to go to market with, and that's what I used. You know, if you want results like this, give me a call. Well, I got tons of calls, but my close rate was abysmal. And I kept wondering, why in the world can't I make the sale here? Wouldn't want results like this. And then when I got serious about answering that question, I realized there are 3 types of managers. There's the autocrat who views employees as automatons. You key in the instructions, flip a switch, and they better darn well do what they're told. There are paternalists, people who feel a moral responsibility to provide employment to people who aren't necessarily top tier, and consequently they don't expect a lot of them. And then the third group was what I call engagement managers. They like to engage their employees in identifying new opportunities, streamlining processes, and solving problems. Well, my program was designed for the third group. And once I realized that, I immediately changed my marketing. And in my marketing message, I said, if you're the kind of manager that likes to engage your employees, blah, 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 and you want results like this, give me a call. Well, I got a lot fewer calls, but the sale was virtually made when I got the call. And the reason is those people already knew that that kind of leadership style worked. I didn't have to educate them. I didn't have to convince them. What they were really looking for were better results than they were getting. And so the sale was virtually made at that point. And from a sales standpoint, one of the things that I found is that I could qualify a prospect once I got a call a lot more quickly. In fact, I could, with one question and 95% certainty, qualify a prospect. All I'd have to do when they called and said, well, let me ask you this. If you had an employee and you were facing this problem with that employee, how would you handle it? Now, an autocrat would say, well, I'd tell them to do this, that, or something else. The paternalist would say, well, I'll get them some coaching or some mentoring, or, you know, I'll shift the workload, but, you know, something along those lines. The engagement manager said, we'll just sit down and talk about it. So if I got anything but the last answer, I'd say, as Sherry indicated, I always use the same language. I'm not the right guy for you. It was always me that was not right. You know, it's not them. But it wasn't going to be a good fit. I can't help an autocrat be a better autocrat when I don't believe that autocracy works. I can't help a better paternalist, be a better paternalist when I think that they're wasting talent and not encouraging people to grow to their full potential. I can't do that. That's just not who I am. And so when I realized that, like I said, I got far fewer calls, but the close rate went through the ceiling. And again, price was not an issue. So if you like, I can share a couple of profiles with you now to give you a sense for what they look like. So in the CFO services and the pricing work, my profile, ideal customer profile, was exactly the same. In there, the first was that I was looking for people who were honest. And you'll notice that I define each of these terms, and I do that intentionally because I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about what I mean or what I intend by the language that I use. So they were honest, and in particular, honest with themselves about what they're good at and where they need help. They're confident, because I find that people who are confident in their own abilities are more open to new ideas, and they make decisions a lot more quickly. The third element is that they're results oriented. And I care less about the magnitude of the results that they've gotten, but that they've gotten some. What I'm trying to avoid there are people who get enamored with the process and lose sight of the target. That doesn't help at all. And then the fourth element is that they're action oriented. If they hear or see something that makes sense to them, they're often running with it. Now, if all four exist, we do some phenomenal things together. I remember a horse trainer, she trained horses and riders for 100 jumper events and had an impressive win record. When she got around to calling me, she had a 95% vacancy in her barn. Within 60 days of going through the whole pricing process, she had 5% vacancy in her barn. She had picked up 25 new riding lessons. She had so many horses for a show one weekend, she had to build some temporary stalls. And somebody approached her to design a 100 jumper arena. Now, as much as I'd like to take credit for all that, the reality is she made that happen because she had all four qualities. All I did was shine a light on the path. She made it all happen. Now, if one of the four, if there are only three of the four that are there, we'll still do some really good things, but they won't be that dramatic. If two are missing, I won't even take them on as a client because we're just going to frustrate one another and waste a lot of time, energy, and their money. And I'm just not into that. Questions on that?
Dale, how do you screen for honesty? Because some people talk a really good game.
Yeah, typically the honesty comes in their willingness to admit where the problems are. So I met with a young man who was in the construction business, and he told me that he'd grown his sales from 400,000 to 600,000 the previous year, but the profits hadn't grown commensurately. Okay, I know this guy's honest. I mean, people don't admit that kind of thing readily, right? Unless you're being honest with yourself. So you get a sense for, when they're admitting to the problems they have, because he said his goal was to continue to grow to 1 million, but he wanted to make sure the profits grew with it. Otherwise, he didn't want to go through the effort. Mm-hmm. That all makes sense, and it's legitimate and it's honest. So it's just, listening. And in particular, I'd say listening for incongruity. Mm-hmm. So if they're saying one thing and doing something else, that's a sure sign that they're not being honest with themselves.
Mary, you had another question?
Yeah, so Dale, you and I have known each other for a really long time, and what just keeps resonating with me is the clarity for the law of attraction.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly what it is that you're saying, and it's for us to really spend some time. And the thing is, I think for entrepreneurs, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but when we get the hungriest because sales are down, is when we will compromise our values, and then we'll miss somebody who's much better for us down the road because we make that compromise. And it gets really hard, especially if you're hungry in sales. You're not having the phone calls or anything. And so I'm wondering if what part of what you're saying is to really look at what questions are you asking, what really are your psychographics, get honest with yourself as a solopreneur, and really think through some of that so that you're in your kind of like in your zone. Mm-hmm. So that's just my summary of some of the things that you've been saying this morning.
Yeah, very concise. And, it's true. One of I've made about every mistake imaginable, but one thing I've done correctly from day one in my business is the last thought I put in my mind before I went into a sales call was, I don't need this business. Now, when you consider that my first month in business, I did something like $265 worth of revenue, and I tell people that, they say, how in the world could you put that thought in your mind and act on it? And the reason I was able to do that is because I knew that ultimately the only thing that we have to sell is success. And if I couldn't be successful in that situation with that prospective client for any reason, whether it was I didn't have the background or experience, the work didn't interest me, I didn't think the client was going to do what I was going to be asking of them, didn't matter what the reason was. If I didn't feel like I could be successful, I knew that my time was better spent finding situations in which I could be successful. And these were days in the early days of my business, and I didn't have a clue about psychographics at that point. But something instinctively knew that if I couldn't be successful, then I was running the risk of damaging my reputation in the market. And that's a heck of a lot more costly than foregoing the business.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're after 8 o'clock, so a couple of people did have to drop off our previous things. Does anyone have another question real quick before we end our breakfast with the expert?
Well, I want to thank you, Lisa, and all of you actually for your conversation here this morning. I really enjoy a dialogue much more than just presenting. So thank you all for that.
Well, thank you, Dale. And you have several comments in the chat saying thank you and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
One point that Andy did make and that agreed is part of this is determining it's just as important to know who the clients are that you don't want as those that you do want. So.
Yeah, one of my earliest pricing clients had contracted with me to go on 3 sales calls with her in addition to the normal pricing work. 4 months in a row, I called her and said, you still got these 3 sales calls. In the 4th month, she said to me, "Oh, Dale," she said, you've built my confidence so much that, I'm amazed at what comes out of my mouth." And I said, "All right, now you've piqued my curiosity. What is it that's coming out of your mouth now?" And she said, "Well, I had a meeting the other day with a woman, and at the end of the conversation, she said, 'Well, I'm going to be talking to some other people.' And she said, I asked her, 'Do you mind telling me who you're going to be talking to?' And she said, I'd had never done that in the past. And so the woman told me, and she said, I looked at her and said, 'I'm not going to be the right person for you.' And she said the woman's mouth dropped open, her eyes got real big. She said, 'Why?' She said, 'Because all during our conversation, you've been focused on the cost. And the people you're going to be talking to are all low price providers. I'm not going to be the lowest price. I'm not going to be the right fit for you.' And I asked her, I said, 'Well, how does that feel?' She said, 'It felt great.' She said, 'In the past, I would have wondered, what could I have said differently? What could I have done differently? How could I get back in the door?' She said, 'I just realized it wasn't a good fit, and I needed to spend some time finding a good fit.' Hallelujah. I mean, and she felt good because she also felt in control. She was deciding this wasn't a good fit instead of feeling like a victim at the whim of the prospect. So that's some of the power that psychographic profiling has, and hopefully it will help you enjoy that sense of control and that confidence in the future.
Thank you. Andy pointed out how empowering that is, and what a testimonial for you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoy sharing that story. I love those kind of successes for people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for coming this morning. And Dale, as always, I truly appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you as a friend. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. See everyone soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.